Hello, and help me welcome Steve Negron. Steve?
Carl, how are you, sir?
Okay, how are you doing? You're all ready to run again.
We're all ready to run again, absolutely. We declared about 3 weeks ago to take on Ann Custer again, so we're really excited about it. And we're getting the band back together, as they said in the Blues Brothers.
Good. I think you'll have a gold platter this time. But it's interesting. You did quite well for a person who had limited access to the media, for example.
It was. You know, we look back, and when the smoke cleared, I mean, we were very disappointed in the outcome, clearly. But when you look at what we accomplished, you know, we had very little resources. I mean, fundraising was very hard. And with all that, with really no help from the big R's, you know, in Washington, they had other races to look at. We took 42% of the vote, and really didn't have the ability to spread our message. So we were very excited about that. We took 114,000 voters that voted for us. So that's our starting point right now. Name recognition was always big for us last time, and we had to get over that hurdle. And I was walking and talking to folks in the 2nd Congressional. A lot of folks asked me, please run again, because they didn't want to start all over. In 2014, the nominee did not come back. In 2016, the nominee did not come back. And so they were really very anxious, saying, please, please, don't let us start all over again. So, you know, sat down and talk about it, you know, with the family, and they're all with us, so we're going to get after it again.
Good, good. Well, I think you got a good platform to go after. You're very strong on that bag. It's, you'll come out and you'll talk about every issue. Absolutely.
We didn't shy away from anything, you know, and we were on stage, I think, 4 or 5 times with Congresswoman Custer, and I got to tell you, we felt very good after all those debates. A lot of good people that were talking about how well we did in those debates. So we didn't shy away from anything. And I think now what you're seeing, you know, even since January, there's a lot more stuff that we can look at and really show that there is a difference between Representative Custer and myself, and that things that are happening in Washington absolutely do not represent the citizens of New Hampshire. And I think this time people around are going to say, you know what, that's not who we want representing us. It just isn't. You know, we're proud people here in New Hampshire. You know, we believe in liberty. We believe that, you know, the government needs to stay out of your business. And all of a sudden now, you know, you're looking at some of these things that are making people in New Hampshire shrug their shoulder and go, we don't have representation anymore.
No, I agree. It's sickening, really. Well, what do you see as the key differences?
Well, clearly, I think right now, you know, nobody's really, they want to spend, and we see that, unfortunately, in the State House as well. It's just like a mini microcosm of Washington. But, you know, there isn't a spending program that they don't want to fall behind. And, you know, I was a big proponent of reducing the debt when I ran last time. You don't hear anything from anybody about reducing the debt, but you do hear them about spending more money. That's why I think it's so important that President Trump stays in the office for another 4 years, because some of those programs that he's instituted and some of his policies are really going to take hold. If you rip them out now, then you're really not going to see the long-term benefit from those. So that's the number one, is that they want to spend stuff. You know, I think there's a lot of things that, you know, we as people from New Hampshire would like our congressional delegation to stand up on our behalf. You know, you see a lot of things that are coming out from other congressional individuals that really don't represent what we believe either in New Hampshire as members of the United States, and our delegation is quiet and silent on that. So I think there's a lot of things that we can contrast to compare myself with Ann Custer, and I think she knows it. As a matter of fact, the day after we announced, she sent out a fundraising email because she knows that it's going to be a little bit different this time. She realizes that, you know, we were close last time. It's a presidential year. There's more voters are going to come out, so it isn't going to be what she would think is another walk in the park.
Right. Well, yeah, as you say, she's doing some of the same. We're doing some of the same things here in Concord, where we're spending and a 13% increase a year.
It shakes your head, and I think that and it's up to us that are running, that are the challengers. It's up to us to be able to frame the message so that, you know, and it should be party agnostic. You know, there are some things in our platform that she's never going to come over and I'm never going to go to them. So that's clear. But there are some things that affect everybody. You know, it talks about, you know, more money in your pocket, you know, as a middle class family. It's about, you know, still national security. You know, it's about not fighting her. You know, the governor said something about 3 weeks ago on Close Up, is that everybody's yelling about the money that was taken away from Portsmouth and the military construction. And I've had many years of experience dealing with federal budget. So it's not as dire as they're saying. You know, there's money to be had. But if they truly were representing New Hampshire, then they would have seen, okay, if we support the president in getting the funding for his wall,
right,
then he wouldn't have had to do the things that he's doing
right,
to get the funding. So in a roundabout way, they're hurting New Hampshire
mm-hmm.
because they're putting themselves in a political position that they don't want to go ahead and buck the party. And I think that's what a representative needs to do, is that you're not there to represent the party, you're there to represent the citizens of New Hampshire.
Right, right. And the citizens in New Hampshire just want a fair treatment, too.
Absolutely.
I mean, we like freedom, we like choice.
Yes.
And what we get is no choice.
Right.
Everybody gets the same package.
Right, and it's mandated, right? You know, and it's and one size does not fit all.
That's right.
But that's what they want. You know, they want control. You know, they want to be able to dictate so that we don't have any other options that are out there. Mm-hmm. And we've seen how that has worked, which it hasn't. And so there's a lot of people going to say enough. And I think the turnout's going to be huge for Republicans in 2020. I think people are going to be as surprised, if not more, than what happened in the 2016 election. And, you know, the president's going to be coming to our great state. You know, we still have our first in the nation status. So I think the dynamic is going to be different, Carl, than it was in 2016. I think now that anybody that's running from the president on down, you know, we have a Senate race that's going to be happening. Of course, Governor Sununu is running again. We haven't heard what's happening in CD1, but I'm kind of hoping that Eddie runs again, you know, to do that. But really what we need to do is we need to galvanize the party. We need to get everybody together and realize that all barrels should be pointed downrange. And, you know, we sometimes beat ourselves up in primaries, and I've been saying all along since I announced, my goal is not to have a primary. You know, my goal is, you know, I'm the presumptive nominee.
Right.
We had a very spirited primary last time. I won the primary, and so I'm back in the game. And 4 out of the 5 folks that were running last time, everybody said either they're looking for jobs elsewhere out of the state, they're not running, or they're with us on the campaign.
Oh, good.
So that's really, and let's just get our resources, get the energy behind the one person. That one person is me.
Get the start now.
And let's start now.
Right.
And focus on knowing that she's a very strong machine. You know, she's already let her first quarter numbers come out. I think she raised $340,000 already. So you know that you have to, and if we are serious about taking that seat back, we got to jump on the bandwagon now, and we need help. We need everybody's resources. We need to make sure that we're getting everything in place to take on Ann Custer. Because if we can level the playing field as best we can from a financial perspective, there's no doubt in my mind I can take her on the issues. Which we saw last time, and which is where a guy really had no money took 42% of the vote in the state. So,
how do you see the younger voted? How do you see and getting them to vote for you on your campaign? Because the young voters seem to think that socialism and other things are the key to this whole story.
Right. You know, I believe we have such a great base of young college Republicans. And young kids that are recent college graduates. You know, we had a lot of college Republicans that were on our campaign last time, probably more than any other campaign that was in the state in either congressional district. And they helped, and I think they were a testament as to why we got 42%. I really do. And so, you know, we're reaching out to them. We're going to grow that base. And so they're kind of like these exponential kind of factors out there. They'll talk to somebody else. And they're so smart about how they lay an argument out.
Yeah.
To somebody that's their age. You know, they would rather listen to somebody who's a junior in college than somebody who's my age that maybe they feel doesn't have context of what they're talking about. So the college Republicans in New Hampshire are key, absolutely. You know, there's going to be some things we understood. There were some issues last time, but there were some entities that were going on college campuses, you know, and doing some things to get kids to register and tell them where to go vote, right? And really kind of misleading them. And so there's been a lot of active participation on the part of the college Republicans to stop that. They're going to the college presidents. They're telling them, no, that's not right, and it's gaining traction. So I believe that this time we're going to have a stronger turnout for young Republicans this time.
Are they organized very well? I mean, because I'll tell you what I heard from a young Democrat when she was bragging about how organized they were and why we have all Democrats on the Nashua representatives. When I says, we got, you know, she was saying how organized. I said, well, we got some good young Republicans that are doing that. you have any young Republicans?
Right.
You know,
Right.
she doesn't think there is any organization.
Right. Well, in all fairness, you know, it's easy to say that you're organized when you have somebody like Steyer that's putting in
Oh,
millions
yeah.
of dollars
That's right.
in there. I mean, so you know, if you're going to compare apples to apples, you know, we do not have the kind of resources that these entities come in. And some of these people that are doing this college organization aren't even college kids at all, right? They're people that they're bringing in. So, you know, it's a bit disingenuous when they say, oh, you know, we've got all these wonderful Democratic college, you know, guys that are out there doing this stuff. Ours is organic. Ours is really a grassroots activity, and they hold their own on those universities around the campus, whether it's Plymouth State or Keene or St. A's or SNU. You know, they hold their own. They are up against a huge behemoth when it comes to those organizational aspects because they have people dumping in money, you know, and the Republican Party doesn't do that. So, you know, they may be better organized. Okay, we understand it, and as long as we absorb the idea that they are better organized, then that gives us the impetus to say, what can we do now? And so when you don't have the resources, then you have to be more efficient elsewhere. And I think what we're seeing now is that there's a huge, as a matter of fact, the college Republicans are having their annual meeting tomorrow at St. A's, which I'm going to be at and I'll be speaking to.
Okay.
So I'm really looking forward to that. It's a great bunch of kids. You know, I wish I could adopt them all and do that because the energy that they bring, you know, is second to none, and they keep us young.
Are they going around to help candidates or to help districts?
Sure. I mean, I think it's both. I heard today that they're recruiting. There's a former colleague of ours, Victoria Sullivan, that just announced that's running for mayor, and they reached out to one of the young men that was on our campaign to be her executive director. So they know that these young men and women have a lot of energy. You know, they've got a couple of campaigns now underneath their belt, so they've seen those kind of things. So they're reaching out right now in this off-cycle year to help other races that are out there. So I think that's smart. I think those people that are running need to reach out to those kids right now to say, okay, can you help me? And I think they'll be willing to do that. So we're really excited about it.
That's good. Do you plan on going to colleges to talk? Or
Absolutely. You know, we went early on last time, and we went to every single school. We're going to do that again early. As a matter of fact, I am going to Texas next Wednesday. Our second son is graduating from basic training. Thank you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop in Fort Worth where my daughter goes to TCU, and I have a meeting with the TCU College Republicans.
Oh, really?
So, which is my alma mater. And so, you know, we are not going to limit ourselves now to the state of New Hampshire. So if we have reach to other places where we may have inroads, we're going to try and utilize that as well.
That's a good source of funding.
You have to, you know, and Texas is big, you know, and I know that there's a Representative Kay Granger, who's a U.S. representative from Texas, that her district contains TCU. And so I am trying to get in to see her while I'm out there to let her know, and I'll go back to TCU. I get to see my daughter and my sister who lives there, but to say, you know what, at the end of the day, what we need to be as conservatives is trying to help conservatives get into Congress. And whether it's from Wisconsin or Arizona or New Hampshire or Vermont, it doesn't really matter. If there's a way to help a conservative to provide the voice and the votes for the president, that really should be an overarching goal for the RNC as a whole throughout the country. Yeah,
definitely. I just hope that spreads quickly. And they can be very organized politically. I mean, well, they had a little race with Senator Cruz.
I know, right? And all of a sudden, this guy who was a U.S. representative, nobody heard about, and all of a sudden now he popped onto the scene. And that's how dynamic social media and media in itself can bring somebody from nothing, traditionally. Nobody heard of Beto O'Rourke when he was a U.S. rep from El Paso. Nobody. All of a sudden now he made Cruz go through a race.
That's right.
And now he's a presidential candidate. So, you know, we believe that New Hampshire we're gonna fundraise organically within the state, but we're not gonna be dependent on outside. But you have to be honest with yourself. You know, you have to look at other ways, and if there are people out there that they believe that there is a candidate that has a chance, then maybe they'll help out financially. And that's what we're gonna go to California, we're gonna go to Colorado, I'm going to Washington State. So we're going to reach out. And these are all colleagues of mine that I've met either through the service or through industry that are out there. And so, you know, they're willing to host a house party for me in conjunction with another visit. So we're going to be, you know, we learned our lesson the last time. Money is important. It isn't everything,
Right.
as evidenced by our result in the race. But to be competitive and be more competitive, you need to be able to raise some shackles to put in your coffers.
Well, I'm hoping everything works out well for you. You need some more help?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're going to do is Nashua's my hometown,
Right.
and I consider that an anchor point for the campaign. The truth be known, we didn't do as well in Nashua as we wanted to in the general. In the primary, I took over 51% of the vote, but that did not follow me over to the general. So we said, okay, we won't take anything for granted. So we're going to reach out to folks in every ward. We're going to have ward captains, and we're going to start this hierarchical working of getting everybody and knocking on doors, and do it when you're at a barbecue. Do it, you can't rush at the very end and try to touch everybody, but if you do it in a consistent pace all the way through this year and next year, then I think that our goal is to reach every voter, not just Republican. If there's a Democrat that's out there that maybe doesn't like some of the things out there, we'll talk to them. We'll talk to anybody. We're not going to isolate one party over the other. And as I tell people, we're going to try and have some large gatherings throughout the city, and just talk to them, and be unafraid. Take any question, and I believe as long as you're above board and open and honest with your answers, then you may be able to change. We had some Democrats that voted for us the last time just because of my position on some of the platforms, and they believed in what I was saying. And you and I have talked about this often, Carl. I love the political arena, I do, but it doesn't define me.
No.
What defines me is that I'm a dad, that I'm a father. Those are the things, and a husband, those are the things that matter. And I think people in today's environment like somebody who's just a guy, that's involved in their community. And I think that's something they don't see a lot. So we're really excited about it.
Well, good. I think that's necessary too. The other thing too is the high school kids.
Right.
That's I've always thought that we should organize them a little bit too, because they know the people here.
Well, there's a young man named George Eade who actually plays piano at our church in Immaculate Conception. I spoke at Nashua South, and there were 31 high school kids that were there, better than some of our NRCC meetings. But George is very active. They've got a tremendous sponsor at the school. They're trying to start that in Nashua North. And I was talking to the New Hampshire chair, Mr. Steve Stepanek, and he talked about energizing the high schools. And I said, well, let's come talk to Nashua, because Nashua South has a very active Republican club. And they came out and they door knocked for us in that very rainy day when the governor was here in Nashua. So, there are inroads to do that. And it's really just an opportunity for a conservative voice to be heard, and that it's equal billing and not one way and only one way. I think that if a young man or woman wants to get an understanding of the political process, then they should hear both sides of the story and not just one. And we shouldn't be afraid of telling the conservative story. I mean, everybody, you see these awful things of a young man or young woman wearing a T-shirt. That just happened in Epping, where she had a T-shirt that said, Trump, make America great again, and she got in trouble for wearing the T-shirt.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And that's just not who we are as people from New Hampshire or as U.S. citizens. Everybody has a right to their opinion. One isn't better than the other. Right. I mean, that is a matter of discourse. But to have people be afraid because of what the repercussions are going to be is wrong. That's not where we are as a country. We've seen a lot of rhetoric on both sides too, right? Yeah. There are some people that won't listen to somebody who has a more liberal perspective, and that's just as wrong as somebody who has a more conservative opinion that doesn't want to listen to a liberal.
Well, when they talk about hate crime and your racial, and that's stupid.
It is, and it's I learned early on being a military dependent when we were either living in Puerto Rico or living in Spain for 7 years, and a lot of my student friends from that time, we're like, we don't understand this discourse between whites or blacks or Hispanics and whites, because all of us, when we were growing up, we were all thrown together in a melting pot. Yeah. You had Hispanics, you had blacks, you had whites, you had Orient. We were all together. The one thing we had in common that we were American kids in a foreign country, and we had each other. Right. And so those relationships that we've made over those years are so strong, and we don't. It's very hard for us, and we get on the phone and social media and talk to each other, and it's hard for us to understand some of this divisiveness that we see. And it's fanned from some of the most senior positions in government, and it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
It really doesn't. And I'm a firm believer of that disagreement is good, because you learn from each other. Mm-hmm. And if we ever get to a point that we can't be honest with each other, then I think that we're on a very slippery slope, and that's not who we are as a country.
Well, 40% of the people in Nashua are undeclared.
Right.
How vulnerable are they to the Republican?
I would tell them I wouldn't go after that 40% as a Republican necessarily. They'll know that I'm a conservative in my platform, but I think there are things that are out there that are, I call it party agnostic, right? I think this national debt that everybody shares, right? It isn't that there are more Republicans that have more debt than Democrats and vice versa. I think there are some things out there that when you put down a logical and cogent argument, that they're going to realize that, oh my goodness, this does affect me, whatever side of the aisle that I'm on. We hear a lot about student debt. There was a great piece that I read about, are the universities complicit in some of these things, where they get paid, what's the skin in the game for them? All of a sudden, a student now has a debt. That's the only debt that you can erase, when you declare bankruptcy. And I don't take the student off the hook because he or she should know what they're able to do, right? But there are some things that fundamentally are affecting almost every family across this country, and those are the things that we need to look at. This whole thing about global warming or climate change. There are people that are like, it absolutely isn't happening, or it absolutely is. I believe that, over time things have changed, temperature changes, but, are we looking at it the right way? I don't personally believe it's as dire as people are saying, but are there some things that we could do smarter? We have. When the ozone issue came out, at least I know that in government contracting, we went out and said, you can't use any more ozone depleting substances in your manufacturing process. So we do smart things when we do that, but you have to be able to tone down the rhetoric and just come to the table and talk about things. So I'm willing to listen to those things that keep people awake at night. And what I heard when I was running the last campaign is, it's tough to balance a checkbook on a Sunday where you're at your dinner table. Why doesn't the government have the same responsibility to balance their checkbook? And you can't argue that. You can't spend what you don't have. And I believe that there are those kind of things that we can talk across the board. And I think that we'll be able to reach some of those voters when they say, you know what, he's fighting for us, and he's not fighting as a Republican, but he's fighting for us as a citizen of the state of New Hampshire.
You see any other areas that really will highlight besides the debt?
Oh, absolutely. So this opioid crisis has not gotten any better.
Right.
And last time in the campaign, we were going to treatment centers and talking. People want to declare victory, and there's no victory. There's no victory to be had yet. It is an understanding of how, and as I talked about this before, are the treatments and the course of treatments the right thing? We sometimes think that an individual goes through a 28-day treatment, and then what's the support on the back end, right? So all of a sudden he or she goes through a treatment process and they're right back where they started. Are those factors that cause them to have that situation in their life in the first place? How are we helping them handle that? We don't talk a lot about that. We talk about this immediate strategic fix, whether it's safe stations or those kind of things. But, there's a long road to recovery here.
Yeah.
And
they've neglected that terribly
they have.
In the past.
And we need to do that. And we need to try to figure out how we address this issue. And I think it was really, when I talked about it, it was a three-pronged approach. First of all, stop the drugs from coming into this country. Number one. Number two, you have to provide treatment, not just that acute treatment, but from a mental health perspective, it's longer term, so that they know that there's things out there that they can count on. When they get those points in time where they think they may, go back. And another thing is education. And the sad part about it, Carl, is that I think we have to start educating at a younger age, right? That they realize that it isn't just about experimentation anymore. Some of this, fentanyl that's coming across is so powerful, that one dose can kill you. So it could be just a one experiment,
one and done.
One and done, and we can't do that. So we have to make sure that the children out there, because it's our responsibilities as educators and as parents and grandparents. We need to make sure that these kids understand what the threat is to them, and be sincere and honest about it when we talk to them.
Yeah, I've seen something in the paper too about some of these knee-jerk reactions about oxycodone, cutting people off on that before they're really they still have the pain. So where do they go? Heroin.
Sure,
Or whatever else.
to try to find it. And I think, and there's tons of horror stories out there where somebody has an operation and somebody prescribes a 30-day supply of oxy or a 45-day supply. I think the pharmaceutical companies, if incentivized, find out that there's probably ways for them to do some things that have pain medication that isn't so addictive. I know that they're looking at some form of marijuana when it comes to pain management, not with the THC. I can't remember what the term of the other chemical is, but there's great promise that it helps people deal with pain without having the addictive properties that are out there. So I believe that we can do some things better. We need to understand the problem set. And as long as we understand, number one, recognize that there is a problem. And just because you throw money at a problem doesn't mean you're necessarily fixing it. How do we assess where the money's going and what is the value? When the governor instituted this hub and spoke model, I thought that was a good model. But you got to involve everybody. You got to get involved those people like we have here in Nashua that are in those treatment centers. Talk to them.
Yeah.
What is working, what is not working. So I think that's what we need to do from that perspective. But the fight is still ongoing.
If you ever want to get some experience, I'll have you talk to my doctor.
There you go. Absolutely.
He does that pro bono at a pain center.
Right.
And he's he's worried about the marijuana becoming addictive.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people that are out there that are going to say some stuff, but my personal belief is, look, we have a state that's battling a drug addiction problem. Introducing another one right now, to me, is a bit too soon, and I think it may exacerbate the problem. I'm not in the State House anymore, so I'm not voting on that. I did vote against it when I was in the State House, but we need to figure out how we do the best way to protect our citizens.
Yeah. Well, good luck on everything.
Thank you, Carl.
I'm willing to be able to help you some whatever
Absolutely.
way I can, and we'll have you back again.
I'd love to.
As we go through this process.
Absolutely, it is a process.
Yeah, and good luck in getting help.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, people, listen in, listen to this interview again, and you know how to contact Steve.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay, thank you.
That's a wrap.
Okay, I have a check for you.
Oh my God.